The instant I stepped inside my old house, I realized something wasn't right. The atmosphere was different, more oppressive, filled with an unidentifiable tension. Mom's mouth was a tight line, and Dad wouldn't look at me. Only my sister Vanessa was there, appearing completely relaxed with her legs crossed, engrossed in her phone as though it was a regular Sunday afternoon. "Morgan, have a seat," Dad said, his voice unsettlingly subdued as he slid a folder across the table toward me. "We need to discuss this." I put down my bag and sat, bewildered yet obediently, a habit I'd developed growing up. When I opened the folder, I found bank records inside. They were my bank records, printouts showing the money transfers I'd been doing for years. $5, Mom stated, her voice shaking with what I wrongly thought was sadness. "That's all you've been giving us each month, after all we've done for you." My mind went blank. "What? No, that's not true. I've been sending $1,500 every month for the last 4 years." I could feel a bead of sweat forming on my forehead. "Ever since I started working at Meridian, you know that." I looked over at Vanessa, hoping for understanding or a word of support. Instead, I noticed something else, a hint of something in her eyes before she hid it behind a facade of worry, something like pleasure. The papers were in his hand, my father said, his finger lightly drumming on them. $5 measly, he continued, his finger quivering a little. "When we've been barely getting by, while your mother has been working extra hours at the hospital." "That's just not true," I countered, grabbing my phone. "I can prove it with my outgoing transfers right now." "Your sister told us everything," my mother interrupted, her tone becoming stern. "How you've been enjoying the city while sending us next to nothing." Vanessa finally looked up from her phone, wearing a look that seemed to show she didn't really want to be doing this. "I didn't want to say anything, Morg. I figured maybe you were saving for something important. But then Mom started crying about the bills, and I just couldn't keep it to myself." I felt completely disoriented. I quickly scrolled through my banking app, checking the recurring transfers. There they were, $500 every month without fail. Even when I was living off ramen, even when I was working 2 jobs, even when my roommate took off and I was stuck with double the rent. "Look," I pleaded, holding my phone out for them to see. "See, every single month." My father hardly even looked at it. Anyone can fake a screenshot these days. That comment felt like a physical blow. 27 years old and they still didn't trust me. It was like I was still a child getting caught in a lie. "I was working myself to the bone with extra hours," I explained, my tone getting louder. "I also started bartending on weekends just so I could be certain I was sending funds back to my family." My mom averted her gaze, her eyes fluttering. My dad folded his arms over his chest. And Vanessa studied her impeccably done nails, the edge of her lips curling slightly. Then all the old memories started rushing into my mind. Vanessa needing to borrow my laptop last Christmas because hers wasn't working right. Vanessa peering over my shoulder as I checked my bank balance while visiting home. Vanessa recommending that I automate transfers to simplify things. "How much money has actually been going to you?" I questioned, my voice barely audible. $5, my dad reiterated, "for 4 years." 4 years, the sum of $72,000 vanished. "And now," he continued, pushing another document across the table, "we've figured out the amount you still need to pay." I focused on the number, $30,000, immediately due. The room started spinning. I recalled all the things I'd sacrificed. The nights I'd covered for other workers so I could earn more, the vacation I'd skipped because I couldn't afford it after sending money to my family, the medical checkup I delayed because it wasn't crucial. I recalled being 17 and arriving home to discover my room transformed into Vanessa's creative hub. My parents had financed Vanessa's business school education, while I was putting in full hours at a job and attending a local college. I recalled Vanessa getting a fancy new car when she turned 21, while I was taking the bus to get to work. And now this was the ultimate backstab. I looked up and saw Vanessa looking at me, no longer attempting to conceal her expression of smug self-satisfaction. In that instant, something inside me, something that had endured and endured and endured for years, finally shattered. I didn't directly confront them immediately, and honestly, I'm not especially proud of that. The reality was, I was still trying to absorb the information, still trying to fully grasp the severity of what had happened. For 3 days, I went through the motions at work. offering nods at suitable times during meetings, writing emails that were totally incoherent, and all the while I was mentally calculating where all that money could have ended up. $72,000 vanished. On the fourth day, I phoned in sick. Afterwards, I drove to the coffee shop where I knew Vanessa would be setting up her daily, morning routine, pictures for her 15,000 Instagram followers. I lingered in the parking area, observing through the glass as she arranged her latte, sunglasses, and whatever sponsored product she was promoting that week. When she eventually came outside, I pulled up beside her silver Audi, the one she'd said had been a partnership with a car dealer. "Get in," I said through the open window of my 8-year-old Honda. My practiced smile wavered. "Morgan, what are you doing here? I was about to go into a meeting with." "Get in the damn car, Vanessa." She climbed in, her expensive bag held tight against her like a defense. "What's your problem? You look awful." I chuckled, and the sound was startlingly empty, even to me. "Where's the cash?" "What cash?" But her gaze shifted, and she gripped her bag more firmly. "The $72,000 you lifted from me." Vanessa exhaled deeply, then did the unexpected. She became calm. Her shoulders loosened, and she faced me, almost as if she were relieved. "Honestly, I'm amazed it took you so long to catch on." She gave a dismissive shrug, studying her image in the rearview mirror. "You were always the clever one." The casual confession left me breathless. I had anticipated denials, justifications, maybe even some tears. Not this. "Why?" I finally asked. "Why?" she echoed, arching a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Because I needed it. Because my business was booming and I needed seed money. Because you've always had it so easy." "Easy?" I stammered. "I've been working 60-hour weeks." "And I've been constructing a brand," she fired back. "Do you have any clue how much it costs to look like this?" She gestured toward herself, the highlighted hair, the designer garments, the perfect makeup. "The procedures, the clothes, the gear for content. This is an investment in my future." "With my money." I just watched her give another shrug. "You weren't really using that money for anything significant," she said. "But I was trying to save up a down payment on a place. I was desperate to escape that tiny apartment I've been living in." "Oh, come on, you were always destined to succeed. You're the one with the perfect job at a big company." The way she spoke was laced with venom. "I've had to struggle to be seen, but you've always had everything practically given to you." The absurdity of that statement completely stunned me. Like, where had I been handed anything in life? I'd been working since I was a teenager. I had put myself through school. I had been sending money back home to help out my parents, who, it turned out, weren't even receiving it. I finally spoke up. "How did you manage to do all of this?" Vanessa actually grinned. "It was absurdly simple, honestly. You logged into your bank account from my computer last Christmas, recall? I kept your login info. Then all I did was modify the transfer amount on your regular payment to $5 and set up another new one to my own account for $1,495. The bank statement still showed a transfer going to family support. You just didn't realize it was going to two different places." The cold calculation behind it made me actually nauseous. "And Mom and Dad, are they aware of any of this?" Her smile wavered a bit. "They have an inkling, but they don't ask questions when the bills get paid." "So the past due payments they're now asking for." "Okay, now that things haven't gone as planned, they have to find a new way to get money." I glanced at my watch, feeling restless. "What's done is done, I know. You earn a good income, you'll bounce back. I required a boost, so I took it. That's how things work, I suppose." I looked at her, at this person who looked just like my sister. "I want to see what you spent my money on." "What are you talking about?" "Show me your Instagram. All those vacations, those outfits. I want to see where all the money I lost went." She looked annoyed but pulled out her phone and went to Instagram. With a tap of her perfectly manicured nail, she flipped through her curated feed. Vanessa in Bali. Vanessa at Fashion Week. Vanessa opening a Chanel bag. $72,000, I said quietly, "and all you have to show for it are a few damn photos." Her eyes narrowed. "I have followers, I have influence, I have openings you couldn't even dream of." "And I have proof," I said, pulling out a folder I'd prepared. "Bank statements, confirmations of transfers, everything. I've already contacted the police and I've spoken to an attorney." She looked pale. "You didn't." "I did. You're right about something, Vanessa. I am the one with the brains." I'd never witnessed actual fear in my sister's eyes before. It didn't give me the sense of pleasure I'd thought it would, just an empty space where I had felt trust. "Morgan, please don't. Get out of my car. We can definitely find a solution. I'll reimburse you as soon as my skincare products are released next." "Get out." She practically lunged for the door handle, almost tumbling onto the sidewalk in her rush to escape. As she stood outside, tightly holding her expensive purse, I lowered the car window one last time. "Tell Mom and Dad I'll meet them this Saturday, at noon. At Rosetta's Diner, all of you need to be there. Also, bring your payment plan. I have one of my own to propose." I drove off, not looking back, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. For the first time ever, I didn't feel bad about turning my family down. I felt unburdened. Rosetta's Diner was a safe space. It wasn't my parents' home, where I always fell back into being the agreeable daughter, and it wasn't my apartment, which I wanted to keep clear of the drama. The vinyl bench creaked as I sat down, arriving early to secure the dominant position, facing the entrance with my back to the wall. They showed up together, unsurprisingly. Dad was in the lead, his jaw clenched with moral indignation. Mom followed, her eyes already filling with tears before anything was even said. Vanessa was in the rear, her typical self-assurance lessened, nervously glancing from me to our parents. "Morgan," my father said in a formal tone as they sat down across from me. I just nodded but kept quiet. I decided to make them be the ones to break the silence. I had spent my entire life always trying to avoid awkward silence, particularly with my family. Not today, though. The server arrived. I asked for a cup of coffee. They wouldn't take anything. Naturally, they wouldn't. Taking even a glass of water could make it seem like this was just a friendly visit, that we might stay a while, that there was anything left to save. My mother spoke at last, her voice trembling with a carefully crafted weakness. "We're so let down," she said, "considering all we've done for you." "All you've done for me," I quietly echoed, interrupting her. "Let's delve into that." I took out a folder. Something about important papers requires the significance of a physical folder, and set it down on the table. This holds a history of every transfer I've made in the past 4 years. $1,500 each month, consistently. That comes to $72,000 altogether. I pushed it toward them. And here is a record of the new transfers Vanessa arranged after she hacked my bank, moved to her account every month. That's $71,760 swiped. My father didn't even look at the papers. "We didn't come here to be blamed." "And I didn't come here to be manipulated," I retorted. "But here we are." Vanessa looked down at the floor. My mother was wiping her eyes, which somehow remained completely dry. "You wish to discuss a repayment plan," I continued, trying to keep my voice calm despite the fury bubbling up inside. "So let's do that. Here's my plan." I removed another piece of paper and put it carefully on the tabletop. Vanessa is going to return every single dollar she embezzled from me, including interest, according to a payment plan my attorney prepared. I glared at my mom and dad. "You both need to admit your part in this scheme, or I'll be adding you to the police report I've already submitted as accomplices." Their expressions of surprise were almost funny, if the situation wasn't so utterly depressing. "A police report?" my mom stammered. "Morgan, we're your family." "Families don't rob one another. Family doesn't take advantage of each other. Family doesn't treat one kid like a cash machine while favoring the other." "That isn't right," my dad retorted loudly. "We've always backed you both evenly." "Oh, really? Who got their bedroom converted into a creative studio? Who had to work full-time while going to college while you paid for Vanessa's education? Who's been sending money home for years while Vanessa travels to Bali using my money?" Vanessa eventually looked up, her cheeks turning red. "I was pursuing a career." "You were living a dream," I replied sharply. "A dream that's now finished." My mom's tears finally began to flow right on schedule. "How can you do this to us, after everything? Your dad's health. My hours have been reduced at work. Your grandfather would be so ashamed." "Don't," I warned, my tone dropping menacingly. "Don't you even think about dragging Grandpa into this. He was the only person who truly saw me, the only one who ever made me feel valued." "Of course you're important," my dad declared, trying to sound like he was making peace. "You're our child, we love you, but family supports each other. Family makes concessions." Precisely, I've been compromising for ages, and what has Vanessa given up? I directed my words toward my sister. What exactly have you forfeited? What have you brought to the table? Her quietness was response enough. My father changed his approach, his voice becoming stern. If you file this police report, you'll destroy this family. I chuckled a genuine laugh this time. There is no family here, there's a freeloader. I nodded towards Vanessa, and there are supporters. I indicated my parents. And then there's me, the victim. Well, I'm finished taking care of them. I rose to my feet, collecting my papers. You have 2 days to sign the repayment contract. After that, I'll allow the investigation to continue without me influencing the outcome for leniency. You can't be serious, my mom said softly. After everything we've done for you. Quit saying that. I banged my fist on the table, startling them. What have you done for me? Tell me one thing, just one, you've done for me that didn't benefit you or Vanessa in the long run. The silence was prolonged, only disrupted by the surrounding sounds of the diner, the clinking of utensils, hushed talks, the ordinary nature that felt so distant from our table. That's what I thought, I said softly. I'll be in touch about the agreement. I glanced behind me one final time. No, actually, I truly don't think I will regret this, not for the first time ever. 2 days later, they showed up at my job. I suppose I should have anticipated it. The direct tactic didn't work, so of course, they'd resort to making a public spectacle. I was in a meeting with a client when my assistant interrupted. Morgan, your parents are downstairs. They say it's urgent. That familiar, sinking feeling welled up inside me, the automatic reflex to abandon everything when my family called. But something new was also present. Determination. Tell them I'm unavailable. I'm in a meeting and won't be done for an hour. They can stay or return later. I went back to the presentation, not paying any mind to the shocked expressions on my coworkers' faces. Morgan Zhang actually choosing herself? Unbelievable. They were still there when I finally came out of the meeting, my mother nervously walking back and forth and my father sitting stiffly in a lobby chair. Vanessa wasn't with them this time. That was unexpected. What's the problem? I asked, keeping my tone businesslike, knowing my colleagues were nearby. You haven't answered our calls, my dad told me, getting up. That's not an emergency. That's the result of your actions. My mother moved closer, her eyes already starting to fill with tears. Morgan, please, we need to discuss this as a family. I won't say anything more until you sign the agreement. We can't possibly pay that back, my father said angrily. You're being completely unfair. People in the lobby were definitely looking. The security guard gave us a look. Suddenly, I felt that familiar wave of worry rise up inside me. I was desperate to make everyone happy, make everything better, and keep everything calm no matter what. I forced those feelings down. If you haven't come to discuss the agreement, then there's nothing to say. And I'd prefer you didn't come here to my job again. My father's expression turned sour. Or what? You'll sick security on your own parents? You go that far to embarrass us. The security guard was now focused on us, with his hand near his walkie-talkie. I caught his eye and gave a quick nod. Sir, ma'am, the guard said, coming closer with a polite tone. I have to ask you to either lower your voices or move this conversation elsewhere. This is absurd, my father exclaimed. We're just having a private family conversation with our daughter. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to, sir, the guard stated quietly. And this is a working environment. My mother grabbed my arm. Morgan, please just tell this guy we're okay. I hesitated for a second. All those years of being taught, don't cause a fuss, don't bring shame to the family, keep the peace, almost got the better of me. But then I thought about the bank records, the money that had disappeared, and all the years I had struggled. Actually, I said firmly, they were just about to leave. My mother pulled her hand off my arm, her face completely surprised. And if they return, I continued, looking straight at the security guard, they aren't authorized to be here. He understood what I was implying, that security guard. I'll show them the way out, he said. Morgan, my father's face had turned almost crimson. This isn't done, you know. We've already consulted with a lawyer. What Vanessa did, it was a personal issue. You won't be able to show it was intentional. That's something for you and the DA to work out, I responded, though I was taken aback by how calm I sounded. Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye, Mom. I turned around and started walking back to the elevators. My knees were shaking, but I stood tall. From behind me, I heard my mother's voice break, as the guard guided them towards the exit in a kind but firm manner. "Morgan, Morgan, please." I didn't turn around. That evening, I changed the locks on my apartment. Then I blocked their numbers on my phone. After that, I poured some wine and sat by the window, watching the city lights become a blur through unexpected tears. I wasn't grieving, it was a sense of relief. Their lawyer's letter arrived a week later. It was printed on thick, cream-colored paper with an embossed heading, and it listed all the accusations against me: defamation, false accusations, and emotional suffering. They wanted me to take back the police report and offer an official apology. I simply sent the letter to my own lawyer without responding. The real barrage came through the family. My aunt called first. "Morgan, what's happening? Your mother is very upset." "I'm certain she is. She says you're causing the family this legal trouble over a disagreement concerning money." I chuckled. Is that her excuse for stealing? A simple mix-up. "Families share, Morgan. That's how it works in a family." Did she happen to mention how much of our joint funds Vanessa moved into her own private accounts? There was a pause, then, "I'm certain there's been a blunder." "No blunder, just straight-up stealing. $72,000 worth." "Well, I'm sure Vanessa will fix it if there's been a simple error." "It wasn't an error, it was planned deception, and it ends now." Then my cousin, who I used to be close to, reached out. Then my godmother. Then my father's golfing buddy, who was also a former judge, thinking he could reason with me. They all reached out by phone or text or email, and each had the same message: family is what matters. Don't make this public. Be the better person. The bigger person, I muttered to myself in my empty apartment after the fifth phone call. It's funny how being the bigger person always translates to let yourself be walked all over. But the constant pressure started getting to me. I started to doubt myself. I started questioning if I was overreacting. I wondered if I was being self-centered or seeking revenge. Old beliefs and habits were hard to overcome. I booked an urgent session with my therapist, Dr. Chen. "I'm starting to question if I'm the one at fault," I confessed, sinking into her office chair. "Everyone is acting like I'm the one destroying the family over money." Her expression was impassive, though her eyes held a certain warmth. "Morgan, imagine a friend confessed that someone swiped $72,000 from them. What would you advise?" "I'd immediately tell them to contact the authorities," I replied without any second thoughts. "And if that person confided that the culprit was a relative?" I hesitated. I suppose I'd still tell them to involve law enforcement. However, I'd grasp why they'd be torn. "Why do you hold yourself to a different rule?" That query lingered between us. "Why, actually?" "Because it's family," I eventually answered, those words ringing false even as I uttered them. "Exactly, family. Those individuals meant to cherish and defend you, the folks who should desire your success." She subtly moved closer. "Morgan, tell me, in what world is it beneficial to be stolen from?" Presented like that, it became crystal clear. Despite this, I'd spent ages, practically my whole existence, believing my requirements were unimportant, that my purpose was to help, to offer, to give up what I needed. "Establishing limits isn't selfish," Dr. Chen went on. "It's a requirement, and from time to time those barriers bring results for you and for those accustomed to ignoring them." I slowly inclined my head, a sensation of something softening inside me. It was perhaps permission, the okay to hold my position. "What if they never talk to me again?" I inquired, voicing the fear that had been hiding underneath everything else. Dr. Chen's reply was kind but firm. Would that be a deficit or a release? I was clueless at that point. However, that evening I sat and composed replies to everyone who'd reached out. Straightforward, honest, without regret. No, I wasn't going to retract the police report. Nope, I wasn't acting unfairly. Indeed, this was a criminal situation. And no, I wouldn't be discussing it any further. With every message I dispatched, I started to feel a bit better. The guilt remained, yet it was shifting. It was no longer a burden, but more akin to a shadow. It was something that followed me around but couldn't pin me down. After that, my phone became less active. The push to get me to change my mind weakened because of my newly found determination. Yet, the real challenge was still ahead of me. 3 months after the issue at Rosetta's Diner, I was summoned to my boss's office. "Morgan," he said, indicating I should sit down. "I've been going over the team's performance figures for the quarter." My stomach just sank. I had been distracted, that was true. The legal battle with Vanessa was still ongoing. The family pressure had eased but never completely vanished. I'd used work as a way to escape, but maybe it hadn't been sufficient. "I understand that things have been tough for you recently," he continued. "You haven't offered many details, and I value that, but I need you to know that your performance hasn't suffered. Actually, you've gone beyond what was expected." I stared, completely surprised. "I have." He slid a folder over the desk, and I thought again, "Why does it have to be a folder that brings major news?" He grinned. "That's why I'm giving you a promotion to senior project manager and a significant pay raise along with it." I flipped the folder open and gazed at the amount. A 30% jump, more money than I ever thought I'd earn. Sufficient to begin seriously putting money aside for that down payment again. My initial reaction was to refuse, to try to express that I wasn't worthy of it, or that I needed to get a consensus from my family, or even that I couldn't possibly take this awesome opportunity when someone else could use it more. That idea made me stop. Those weren't my genuine thoughts. They were the voices I'd picked up. The ones that always prompted me to give money I couldn't spare to people who didn't ever seem to value it. "I accept," I said. "Thank you for this amazing chance." That night I sat in front of my laptop and did something I'd been procrastinating about for a while. I added it all up. Every single dollar I'd sent back home since I got my job, all the bills I'd paid, every birthday check I'd signed, each loan that had never come back to me. $103,742. The number stared back at me from the document, clear and absolute. Enough for a down payment on a small house. Enough for a master's degree. Enough for a year's break to go traveling, writing, or just to relax. It was all given away. It was all lost. But not anymore. When that first paycheck landed in my account, I went wild and indulged in myself. I got myself a different apartment, an actual one-bedroom place with a river view, a far cry from the converted storage unit I'd been stuck in. I purchased brand new furniture, not stuff I'd scrounged from the streets or that my coworkers had passed down to me. I enlisted a financial expert to get me started on a real savings program. I also quit looking at Vanessa's Instagram every single day. That last part was way tougher than it should have been. I was stuck in a pattern of scrolling through her posts, feeling a fresh wave of bitterness with every expensive item she flaunted, and a flash of rage with every faraway place she visited. It wasn't good for me, and it certainly wasn't helping me move on. So I blocked her, and my folks too, plus anyone else who'd sided with them. Instead, I concentrated on strengthening other connections. My colleague Jade, who asked me to join her book club. My neighbor Elliot, whose dog I started walking whenever he had to work late. My college pal Alyssa, with whom I'd lost touch during those years when I couldn't afford to see her. Half a year after that fight, I threw a housewarming party in my new place. Gazing at the faces of my attendees, people who simply wanted to hang out with me, I understood that I was establishing something new. A chosen family. One that was based on valuing one another instead of being driven by a sense of duty or remorse. That evening after everyone departed, I became aware of something peculiar. Vanessa's online presence had altered. The expensive handbags and far-flung travels were no longer there. Her posts had transformed, featuring more budget-friendly clothing and easier-to-reach locations. Her accompanying text discussed financial tricks and staying within one's budget. Her funds had disappeared. My funds had vanished, too. I exited the application and removed it from my device. I didn't require any further viewing. I was liberated. The phone call arrived on a snowy Tuesday night in December. It had been almost a year since I discovered the stealing. 8 months had passed since I'd stopped answering my family's attempts to contact me. 6 months after Vanessa finally agreed to a settlement rather than deal with criminal prosecution. "Morgan, it's Vanessa speaking." I almost terminated the call. The number was unknown. She must have used someone else's phone to bypass my restrictions. "What do you need?" My tone was sharper than I planned, though I didn't adjust it. "It's Dad. He's at the hospital." The old fear began to resurface, the instinctive reaction to a family crisis. But I managed to control it, remembering Dr. Chen's suggestion. Evaluate, don't just respond. What occurred? A heart attack, not a serious one, but they're keeping him under observation. He's requesting you. I shut my eyes. Of course he was. Of course this was their way of trying to draw me back. I'm sorry to hear that, I stated cautiously. I hope he gets better soon. Is that everything? Is that all you're going to say? Vanessa's tone became louder. Your dad's in the hospital and all you offer is the hope he gets well soon. What exactly are you looking for me to say, Vanessa? What do you expect me to do? There was a beat of silence and then her voice softened. Could you maybe come, even for a short time? It would mean the world to him and to all of us. I considered it. I really considered it. What would be the downside of going? What would be the price of staying away? I'll be there tomorrow, I eventually responded, for half an hour just to visit him. Thank you, Vanessa whispered, her relief obvious in her tone. And Morgan, I realize this doesn't make up for anything, but I'm sorry, I truly am. The words lingered between us, surprising and inadequate, but not completely unwelcome. I'll see you tomorrow, I responded, and then I hung up. The hospital room was precisely what I'd pictured it would be. My dad seemed smaller and older lying in the bed. My mom hovered nearby, eyes red but trying to hold it together. Vanessa stood uncomfortably by the window, her fancy attire swapped out for jeans and a simple sweater. Morgan, my father said, his voice thick with feeling, you actually came. I promised I would. I stayed by the door, not making any effort to hug anyone or sit down. An awkward silence followed. I didn't try to break it. The doctors recommend that I reduce the stress I'm under, my father eventually stated. I have to change my lifestyle. I nodded. That sounds like a good idea. My mom interjected a little uneasily, looking back and forth between me and the others. Given the situation, we've had to change things around, she said. Your dad's healthcare costs are, and with what you're paying out to Vanessa. Oh, I knew what was coming. This was what the meeting was really about. I'm sorry, but I can't provide any financial assistance, I replied calmly. If that's why you wanted me here. That's not my dad started to say, but he cut himself off. A brief flare of the old temper crossed his features, and then he seemed to compose himself. That's not the reason. We wanted to visit you. We've truly missed you. I gave him a good look, really paid attention. The man who had been my dad, but who had never truly understood me. The man who'd taken my money without a second thought, and then accused me of dishonesty when I revealed the truth. I don't think we have the same recollections about our time together, I said softly. My mother began to silently weep, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Vanessa moved around a little uncomfortably near the window. We messed up, my father conceded. We didn't. We weren't the best at dealing with stuff. It was about as close to a formal apology as I could reasonably expect. Not for the money, not for the preferential treatment, not for the way I was used, just for the fact that they weren't the best at dealing with things. You're right, I responded. You definitely didn't. A pause settled over us again. I glanced at my watch. 15 minutes had already passed. I could leave now. I'd technically fulfilled my perceived duty. But there was something holding me back. Not a sense of obligation, not even a curiosity about them, something else. The urge for a proper ending, maybe. How are you doing? Vanessa unexpectedly inquired. We saw on social media that you got a promotion. I found myself saying, and I was genuinely taken aback by how true it felt. I'm doing well. I added, really, truly well. That's wonderful, she responded, and her voice sounded sincere. Your new place looks nice too, based on the photos. So she had been keeping up with my online presence. Fascinating. It's not huge, but it's mine. My mom quietly dabbed her nose. We always hoped you and your sister would achieve things and find joy. I looked at her, this woman who brought me into the world, brought me up, and then let me be a source of income for them for so long. There was no need to rehash the past. There was no value in stirring up old grievances. What had happened had happened. I am happy, I stated plainly, for the first time in ages. My words just lingered there, neither an indictment nor a forgiving statement, just a truth. My dad made a throat-clearing sound. Morgan, regarding the finances. I don't want to talk about that, I stopped him. Vanessa and I have a formal arrangement. It has nothing to do with this visit. Of course, he quickly changed his tune. I just meant, We're having a tough time with the changes. I just nodded. Adjustments are tough. Yes, he affirmed, a flicker of surprise in his eyes at how calmly I answered. Yes, they are. Vanessa walked away from the window, carefully approaching me. Do you think perhaps we could get coffee together sometime, just the two of us? I thought it over. Last year I would have said yes instantly, craving any shred of familial connection, any sign they still wanted me involved. Now I analyzed her offer.